Hello and welcome to Big Friendly Grub. I hope you are well, and I have a little confession to make on this video. This wasn't actually the original video I had in mind for you today. I had shot a whole other video, start to finish, and well, basically I was making brioche and it didn't go quite according to plan. It was all looking fairly promising until I cut into the brioche and it hadn't cooked in the middle. And usually I'd be like, everything doesn't have to be perfect, you know, it doesn't matter too much. But one of the fundamental things with brioche and bread is that it has to be cooked through. And it was just one of those things. I'd given myself too much to do today. I was trying to do too many things in one go and I didn't pay attention and I didn't check the middle. It happens to the best of us. If you've ever watched the Great British Bake Off, even excellent cooks and bakers and things can have an off day. And they're far, far better than I am, and I most definitely have my off days. And unfortunately, that was one of them. But I'm not gonna let this brioche loaf go to waste. So you can see here is the offending brioche loaf. You can see it's not quite cooked in the middle. It's not good, but it's not complete waste. But while on its own, it's not good enough for me to serve up to people as is, it is gonna be good enough to make a white chocolate and apricot brioche bread and butter pudding, and that's a lot to say in one go. But my gosh, this is going to be one heck of a substitute, and I think this is a fairly fair trade, don't you? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to create that bread and butter pudding. I'm going to put it into the oven for a little bit, let it just toast up, almost like it's going stale, because you could do this recipe with leftover stale bread if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be brioche. And then we're going to turn it into a glorious white chocolate and apricot bread and butter pudding. I think this is a fairly good trade. So I'm going to get started because it's getting late, because I've already been doing a video all day, and let's turn shit into sugar basically. Let's get going. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this brioche loaf into slices and get it onto this baking tray, and then it's going to go into the oven for probably about 10 minutes just to cook a little bit more, almost go stale, like stale bread basically, because it is fresh and it's still good, it still tastes good. I tasted it earlier, it tastes fantastic. It's just not cooked through, which is not what you want with a brioche. You want it to be perfectly light and fluffy all the way through, not stodgy, not squidgy, which is what this is, unfortunately. But no fear, we're going to turn this into something absolutely wonderful. Got me balled out because I don't want to cut my surface. My landlord will tell me off. I'm going to cut this into slices. Doesn't have to be too even. I'm going to cut this in half again and start placing it on the tray. So you can see some parts of that are absolutely lovely. That is one of the outer bits, and you can see it's cooked really nicely. It's light and bouncy and fluffy. It was just right in the middle. But I want this one to be perfect. And it's okay. We'll do the actual brioche loaf again another time. And this is a brilliant opportunity to show you how to turn something like this that you might have leftover bread or brioche or whatever into something really good. So that's all our brioche chopped up into nice bits. I'm going to pop this into the oven at about 160 for about 10 minutes just to allow it to crisp up like it's almost going stale, and that's going to allow it to soak up our lovely custard that we're going to make a little bit later. So into the oven with this. Right, it has been about 10 minutes and these smell amazing, and they are nearly went to turn the oven off, but we're going to need that. So these are now nice and crisp, not too crisp, but like they're a bit stale, like they've been left out for a couple of days, and that's what we want, because this is going to help us to really soak up our lovely custard that we're going to make next. Right, to make our white chocolate custard, and tell you what, white chocolate is my least favourite of all chocolate, but something about white chocolate custard just sounds amazing. It's like, oh yes please Vicar. Don't know where I was going with that. Don't know where the Vicar came into it, but if the Vicar was offering some white chocolate custard, then I would be like, yes please Vicar. So anyway, to get started with this, we're going to need 250 grams of caster sugar. See how much is in this bag. If it's 250 grams, that will be wonderful. In fact, yes it is. There's slightly more than 250 grams in that. So that is lovely. It means I don't have to open a new bag. Then I'm going to add in 4 eggs, already cracked them. I'm going to chuck those in there. And I'm going to beat those in to our sugar really, 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 really well. So So a lot of elbow grease later, and that is all well combined. So that is going to be put to one side now. A lot of putting things to one side. And now we can get on with the cooked part of our custard. So we're going to be cooking some cream, milk, etc. So let's do that next. Oh, a bit out of breath. Already worked out once today. Didn't need another. Right, for the next stage of our custard, we're going to need a large pan over a medium heat, and I'm going to add in a pint of milk. That's 568 millilitres to be precise. So in that goes. And I'm also going to add in 300 millilitres of double cream, because custard is an indulgent thing. So with that in the pan, our next thing is just to wait for it to come up to a gentle simmer. We don't want it boiling, we don't want to go overboard with it, we just want it up to a gentle simmer. So just got to wait for that. It's not very exciting, but that's what we've got to do. So I'm just going to speed things up for you, because if I wanted to be mean, you could just wait around with me, but I'm not going to do that. Right, the milk and cream have just come up to a gentle simmer, and whoa, there we go. I'm going to move that off the heat, because that is the point where we now no longer want it on that heat. So I'm going to move that over and adjust the camera so you can see what's going on. At this point, I'm going to add in my white chocolate, which I've got in button form of a very popular brand over here in the UK. I'm not going to say its name, but if I was feeling generous, then they'd be on me. So pop these in, melt them in to that milk and cream. I may have aged myself with that reference just now, by the way. I don't know if those adverts are still going on. Just gonna stir that in, melt it in to that milk and cream. And I think, to be honest, they've already melted, because that milk and cream is nice and hot. There was 200 grams of chocolate there, by the way. You could go for a little bit more if you wanted to, but I think 200 grams will do nicely. Will help it make it not too super sweet. Of course, I will put all ingredients and measurements and weights and times and things into the description, as always. You'll also be on the recipe on the blog, as always. So I think that is all good. So we can now get this into our eggs and sugar. So I'm going to switch things around and we can get that done. Right, here's our eggs and sugar. Right, here's our eggs and sugar from earlier, and I'm just going to slowly drizzle in this a bit at a time, so it's not to hopefully not scramble the eggs in this, and also it will help melt down that sugar. So a little bit at a time. It's got to be messy. Just got to keep doing this until all that is combined into these eggs and sugar. So I won't keep you around, I'll skip ahead and you can join me in a bit. Right, I've got all that milk, cream, sugar, eggs and chocolate combined. Just need 2 more things in this. Quick splash of vanilla extract, and then the zest of 1 lemon, just to give it a lovely freshness. And stir that in as well. Now you may be thinking, that looks a bit thin for a custard, doesn't it? And you might be right. Usually if we were having this by itself on something, this would be cooked down, so it'd be a lot thicker. But because it's going onto the brioche, it's going to be soaked up by the brioche, and it's going to become a lovely thick custard in its own right when it's soaked into the brioche. So this is the consistency we want, and I'm going to put this to one side while we work on constructing the bread and butter pudding part. So now we can get on with the construction of our bread and butter pudding. I've got a really nice dish here. It's usually a pie dish, but it will work. That's all, folks. Don't know what happened there. Went a bit stuttery, like Porky Pig. But this will work nicely for our bread and butter pudding. That's what I was trying to say. I've got our brioche here, so I'm going to start layering this up like so, all the way around the edges, try and get into those corners and things. Kind of like that, like a big lovely flower made of brioche. Right, I think that's all I'm going to be able to pack into there. There's loads in there, and that will soak up all of our custard nicely. Now, I said this was a white chocolate and apricot bread and butter pudding, and I wasn't lying, because here are our apricots, which I've chopped up off camera. You didn't need to see me chop all those up, because it's literally just me roughly chopping them up. No skill involved. And I'm going to sprinkle these all over the top and get them underneath. Just going to arrange them so they're all distributed. Now we've got our brioche and our apricots in there. All that's left is to get the custard in there. And to make life easier for myself, I've put it in a jug because I'm sensible. And I'm just going to pour this all over. Try and soak it into as much of this bread as possible. This looks like a lot of liquid, but this brioche is going to be absorbent. Right, so that is all that custard in that bread and butter pudding there. Now, it looks a bit sloshy at the moment, but that's fine because we'll leave it to rest for 10 to 15 minutes before we get it into the oven with a bit of Demerara sugar on top to give it a lovely crunch on the top. So I'm going to leave that to rest for 10 to 15 minutes because it's deceptively heavy. Have a bit of a clear up and then we can get that in the oven. Right, this has had a good 10 to 15 minutes to let some of that custard soak in there. So all I'm going to do now is get some Demerara sugar and sprinkle this all over the top. This will give it a nice crunchy top. And then I'm just going to cover this with some foil because there's a good chance that this could burn in the oven, especially the apricots, because they've got so much sugar and stuff in them, they tend to burn first. So this can go into the oven at 180 degrees for about 30 to 40 minutes, I'd say. It's one of those things that you kind of keep an eye on. So I'm going to give it 30 minutes and see how it goes. Oh God, it's heavy. Right, it is now time for this to come out of the oven. It's a heavy beast. Look at this, look at that. Isn't that glorious? Look how golden and beautiful that is. Now, if you're thinking, hang on Matt, didn't you put that in with foil on it? Well yes, indeed, you're right, I did. And after 30 minutes I checked it with the foil and it was nearly there, but it wasn't quite cooked enough. So I took the foil off and have given it another 15 minutes with the foil off. So that's allowed us to have it cook through nicely with the centre still squidgy, but it's going to be a delicious squidgy, a lovely sog, but have all sorts of lovely crispy edges. You can see it's gone nicely golden brown on top, but it's not overcooked. All the apricots are still intact, they haven't burnt, and quite honestly, it smells fantastic. I'm going to have to leave this to cool down for a moment because it's extremely hot, and then we're going to be able to get some Insta photos and give it a try. Now there we go. There is our white chocolate and apricot brioche bread and butter pudding, and I have to say that slowly because it's a mouthful and it is going to be an actual mouthful very, very soon. Now this looks and smells fantastic. It's just so indulgent. There's so much in there. And you also might be thinking, Matt, it's a bread and butter pudding, but I didn't see you put any butter in it earlier. Well, that's because brioche is already full of butter. It has 250 grams of butter in that single loaf. So it was a bit redundant trying to put more butter onto it when it's already full of butter. So that is why it's already in there. You don't need to add any more. It's already rich and indulgent by itself. But all that's left to do is give this a try. But because I want to take this one to work tomorrow, I don't want to have to dive into it and be that guy who takes in something with a bite out of it, basically. So what I also did was I made myself a little one. Look at that. It's a baby one just for me. So I am going to be giving this one a try. So I can indulge myself on this one and work can enjoy that one tomorrow. So I'm going to switch angles and give this a go. Right, here is my mini white chocolate and apricot brioche bread and butter pudding, and I'm going to give this a try now. This is a lot easier than trying to carry that thing up here as well. It is so heavy. I can't believe how heavy it is. It might be nearly as heavy as that cinnamon roll that I made last week before. Whenever this video goes up, that amount of time when I made that cinnamon roll, basically. I'm going to give this a go. So I'm going to try and dive into here. What's the best bit? Let's try and get a little bit of the middle. Oh, there we go. That's a little bit of the middle, a little bit of the edge. Oh, this is not going to be easy, and I'm worried about it sliding off the plate. Oh, it smells so good. It's going to be hot. It might be hotter than the surface of the sun, but it's going to be worth it. Oh my God. Oh, that is so good. That is so naughty. You can taste that butter, white chocolate, the crisp sugar, the crisp edges of that as well. and the apricot just complements it so nicely. It's so good. I'm going in for another bit. Oh man, I'm sorry, I realised I was talking with my mouth full there. My mum taught me never to do that, but I couldn't help it there. That is so good. And that would be glorious with just some vanilla ice cream to complement the warm and delicious bread and butter pudding. It is so good. And considering that was made from the failure that was the brioche loaf I made earlier, I'm really damn happy with that. You know, if you're going to mess something up, you might as well create something glorious from it, and that is truly delicious. If I do say so myself, that is stonking. And I'm going to go off and enjoy this now. It's been a long day. I think I earned this. Basically, after snatching victory from the jaws of defeat earlier with the brioche, I think this is earned. So I'm going to go off and enjoy this. Hopefully, if you make this, you'll enjoy it too. And you know the drill by now. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you're enjoying what I'm doing, subscribe. And otherwise, I will see you next time on the next Big Friendly Grub. Bye guys.